Have you ever wanted to take your dog into Canada with you on a road trip, but maybe you've put it off because you feared the onerous process that was in front of you? If that's the case, then this video is for you. We're going to take a look at the 5 basic things you need to consider. Getting through the Canadian website, pet selection, documentation, vaccination requirements, and pet food concerns. For nearly a decade now, my wife and I have been traveling extensively with our dogs. And our current dog, Freya, a Greater Swiss Mountain dog, has been to like 13 states. She's been out west 3 or 4 times now, but we haven't taken her international. And as we consider a multi-week trip into Eastern Canada, we thought it might be smart to go through the process of doing the research and doing a short trip into Canada so we could make sure we knew what we were doing and we didn't have any surprises. For those of you watching, we reside in Southeast Michigan, the United States, in the Greater Detroit metropolitan area. So the nearest point of entry into Canada for us is about 30 miles from where I sit recording. However, nobody I know personally, nor my vet, have any experience in taking their own dog across the border with them. The process started for me at Google and doing a search. Depending on where you enter the Canadian family of websites, it can be very unclear and very frustrating. Nothing on the home page actually helps with answering the question, how do I take my dog across the border? If you look at the menu and dig in, you'll see travel and tourism, but you'll also notice that there's nothing there that is talking about bringing your pets over. You can go through, like I said, and you can get yourself wrapped around an axle trying to find stuff. Ultimately, where you want to go is to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. I know, it's highly intuitive, isn't it? Might have been nice to have something about pets and whatnot under the tourism section, because a lot of people do that, but go to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency website specifically for importing plant, food, and animals. And I'll include this link in the description section. And this website is, as you see it, as of the end of 2024. You don't have to worry too much about this bit here. The real process starts down with the question at the bottom of the page. What type of animal are you traveling or importing? And we're going to say a dog for this discussion. What's the purpose for the dog coming in? Personal, an assistance dog, or commercial? Personal, if you're taking your pet with you and your pet's coming back with you, it's going to be personal. If you're doing almost anything else, you're selling the dog, you're giving the dog up for adoption or to be fostered, transferring ownership, that's going to be under a commercial concern, and that process is different. As you're going to see, they are very specific about, is it personal or is it commercial? Go ahead and select personal for this discussion. They next want to know how old the dog will be when you enter Canada. There's a special consideration if it's under 3 months, but pretty much if it's 3 or 8 months or older, it'll be the same process. What country are you coming from? Again, in our case, from the context of coming from the United States, and then click on continue. This is a section where you're going to want to go through most of this. I'm going to give you the highlights and what I found relevant. Some of this can really take you down some deep rabbit holes that I don't think you need to worry about. So the key thing they're looking at is that you have a valid rabies vaccination certificate and that the dog appears healthy and is being transported safely. From the health perspective, if the dog looks healthy, presents him or herself as healthy, you shouldn't have an issue. In other content I found on the website, if the dog does not present as healthy, you can expect having a veterinarian come out to inspect your dog and decide whether or not it can continue. So the short version of the story for that section is, if your dog's sick, doesn't look healthy, you might want to rethink or change your travel plans. If we scroll down here further, you can go ahead and take a look, and I would recommend you at least skim some of these things. The Rabies Vaccination Certificate is a key item. You do need to meet these specific requirements. So For 35 years or so, we've had pets, we've had cats and dogs vaccinated, and they have not met these requirements. So do not assume that because you have a vaccination certificate from your veterinarian that it's going to be valid for crossing the border. The odds are it won't. And none of ours up to this point across multiple veterinarians have ever actually met all these requirements. So we'll skim through this. Needs to be in English or French or a valid translation. It needs to be signed by a licensed veterinarian. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. It needs to be specific to the animal. So identify the animal. My take on this is they want to make sure that this isn't going to be a generic piece of paper that can be treated for multiple dogs passed off from friends or something. They want to know that this vaccination certificate is specific for the dog in question. You as the owner need to be identified on the certificate. It needs to state the date of vaccination. Again, state the animal is vaccinated, indicate the date of the vaccination. They want to know the trade name or brand of the vaccine as well as the serial number. In a different location, they said both the trade name or brand, the batch, and the serial number. Here's another item that you don't want to assume. If you have a multi-year, say a 3-year vaccination is common, it needs to state both the start date and expiration date. If it does not include an expiration date, they will assume that it's a 1-year vaccination. Where that could get to be a problem for you is if 2 years after vaccination, you're attempting to cross the border, but it doesn't say it's a 3-year vaccination, you'll be denied entry with the pet. Here again, we talk about the licensed veterinarian. They want the printed name and signature of the licensed veterinarian on the certificate. I'll go ahead and put up a sample so you can get an idea of what ours looked like as we took Freya back and forth. As we scroll down, another key point, and they don't really speak to it in this section here, rabies vaccine must have been administered more than 30 days to your attempt to enter the country. If you come down here, they talk about can't enter the country unless it's been at least 30 days with that vaccination shot. Let's go ahead and take a look at pet food, what you're going to find. This basically boils down to you can bring over 20 kilograms, which is like 44 pounds of dog food. It has to be only eaten by your dog. So they talk about the pet food has to be of U.S. origin and be commercially packaged and so on. We did not have a problem with, it's got to be in a sealed container. The key thing is that the animal will eat the imported product, must accompany the traveler at the time of entry, and the imported product is fed only to that animal. The last item that's not here, but I have seen it mentioned elsewhere, is you need to provide proof of ownership. There's a couple of ways of doing this. If you got the dog from a humane society or an adoption shelter, you probably got a purchase receipt. Freya came from a breeder. We had the formal documentation that said, we, the breeder, sell to these 2 people, this dog, this amount, this date. The other option that you could look at, you don't have any paperwork. If you have a history of taking your dog in for annual exams with your veterinarian, I venture to guess your veterinarian will be comfortable certifying for you that yes, you are the owner of the dog. So this is the basic process of preparation. Go ahead and deal with the Canadian website, do your research, skim through that. Have both digital and paper copies. Now, when we actually went to cross the border, we crossed the border through Sault Ste. Marie, and we drove up to the customs agent in the booth. We provided our passports. After a moment, he looked over, saw my wife was holding a piece of paper. He said, hey, is that the documentation for your dog? Yep, here it is. He spent about 30 seconds looking through it, and we were on our way. The entire process took maybe 3 minutes from we pulled up, said hi to have a great day, and we were on our way. Have your documentation in order, be ready to give it to them, make sure you're already meeting all the specific requirements, and I think you'll be surprised at how smoothly both getting into Canada and coming back into the U.S. with your dog will be.